How is an RIA competing with private banks to become a national brand for the ultra high net worth?
So as I sit here today, Pathstone has absolutely zero market share. So there's no other way to say that there's this unbelievable blue ocean for our business to continue to grow organically and inorganically over the next, I'll say, the next chapter.
And what are ultra high net worth clients attracted to that has propelled the business from 1 billion to 100 billion in assets under management in 14 years?
As a pure fiduciary, the only revenue that Pathstone receives are what our clients pay us directly. We don't get commissions, brokerage fees. When someone takes margin, we don't get 2% fees on top of that. We don't get placement fees on private equity. We're truly sitting on the same side of the table as our clients versus selling them something. And so I think you have a fundamental difference in the business models.
On this episode of Growth Leaders of Wealth Management, I'm talking to Pathstone CEO and co-founder Matthew Fleissig, President Kelly Maregni, Chief Marketing Officer Lauren Fryefield, and board member and private equity investor Brad Armstrong. To learn how you take an intense dedication to customer service and advisor development,
I think it's one of the greatest parts about Pathstone is that, we truly believe that if our people are happy, our clients will be happy and we're going to be successful.
And how to grow a firm from 35 people to 600, serving over 700 clients.
Were we sitting there with the crystal ball and said, hey, I think this is going to be a $100 billion business 14 years from now? No, but what I will tell you is the business grew from $1.4 billion to $4 billion in 3 to 4 years. And clearly we realized that there was a bigger opportunity here than I'd say even us thought there was going to be, because of the need of what we saw in the industry.
Join me as we dive into Pathstone's journey to build a national RIA brand for the ultra high net worth and grow into a company of 600 people nationwide serving hundreds of wealthy families. We'll learn how their new investments in technology and marketing, cultivation of the next generation of talent, and a fervent dedication to client experience has enabled Pathstone to grow to managing $100 billion in assets in the last 14 years. Pathstone was founded in 2010 from a group of founders and shareholders who had a deep history in wealth management and saw a need from their ultra high net worth clients for a more customized menu of services to serve their families. Here's co-founder and CEO Matt Fleissig on the foundation of Pathstone.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's incredible memories. And, I'll say 7 original founders and shareholders taking a risk. Not knowing exactly where things were going, but we knew that there was a business model out there in a non-bank, non-brokerage environment where you could actually sit on the same side of the table as your clients, that we thought there was a need. And we knew that because we worked with several prominent American families and all clients north of $100 million. And the gap that we saw was that, everyone can have investments. And now if you fast forward the clock 14 years later, you could go anywhere and get a global cap market weighted asset allocation from pretty much anyone. And it's not going to look that much different, is what I hate to say. And the industry's been commoditized. But what our families we initially worked with were missing was, how do you do your accounting? How do you do your taxes? If you have 5 homes, what do you do with your mail? How do you handle the payroll for the household staff in different locations? How do you handle property management, planes, cars, pilots? That was something where there was no place where you could make a single phone call and handle all of those things in one place. And that was the genesis of the business, was how do we become a single family office for multiple families? And we didn't think there was a solution. We did this for our original families, and it just caught on like wildfire. And so from day one, we had accountants on staff. We had tax professionals. We had everything. We had one of our first hires ran the business on property and casualty and health insurance. And these are all these problems that families in the ultra high net worth face, and we thought we'd solve. Now, when we started it, our original families was $1.4 billion in assets that we oversaw. Were we sitting there with the crystal ball and said, hey, I think this is going to be $100 billion business 14 years from now? No, but what I will tell you is the business grew from $1.4 billion to $4 billion in 3 to 4 years. And clearly we realized that there was a bigger opportunity here than I'd say even us thought there was going to be, because of the need of what we saw in the industry. It was all organic. We're a culture of service. So the way more clients were coming was by word of mouth. There was no advertising. There was no marketing. Like today, there's no digital advertising. This was an old-fashioned relationship business that we delivered incredible service that attracted new clients to come. And it got to a point of almost this inflection point of, holy cow, we have now 50 families versus the original. We had 35 people at the firm. And we quickly realized that if we are going to continue to grow at this pace, we are going to have to do something other than try and hire more people. So From the early days, building the house while living in it, I'll say was a blast. And I still think we're building the house while we're living in it to this day. But no, there's no way any of us would have thought that. We knew we had a good business idea, but we never thought it would grow to the size of where we are today. And now I think the sky's the limit. Where we sit here as a complete blue ocean opportunity to become the national brand for the ultra high net worth.
When you think of ultra high net worth families, the conventional wisdom is that these wealthy families are conditioned to seek wealth management services at the global private banks like Goldman Sachs or Merrill Lynch. The acronym PBIG exists for a reason. There's also many RIAs that want to chase this market, and some who say they offer family office services for the ultra high net worth. But when you look under the hood at these firms, they're usually serving the $1 to $2 million investable asset population with less than a handful of truly ultra high net worth families on their client roster. So when they set out to build an RIA as a multifamily office for the ultra high net worth, I was curious about how Pathstone set themselves apart from the big banks to go after this niche.
Well, a couple things. One is the way fees are driven. And in that note, as a pure fiduciary, the only revenue that Pathstone receives are what our clients pay us directly. We don't get commissions, brokerage fees. When someone takes margin, we don't get 2% fees on top of that. We don't get placement fees on private equity. We're truly sitting on the same side of the table as our clients versus selling them something.
Right.
And so I think you have a fundamental difference in the business models. Now, could one day, as I'll say, as disruption occurs, could business models change? I think absolutely. The other route we went, which I think was interesting, is that we also unbundled all of our services. So traditionally, you'll see a business or an RIA charge a percentage of your assets as fees. And they may have estate planning in-house, which you'll find at the large firms, or you may find even some firms have bill pay, but they're literally sitting there like, pretty please don't engage me on these additional services, because all it does is reduce their margin. So if those are just going to reduce margin, are you really going to invest in the level that someone like us can? So when a client engages Pathstone, we have a 14-page matrix of services of things that we can do. You check off the boxes if you want philanthropic advisory, if you want property and casualty, if you want prenup, postnup. I like to say, if you can dream it, we can do it. And that's how your fee is determined. And so if someone goes and buys a new horse ranch and wants us to do the payroll for 10 cowboys and the accounting on 40 horses, that's what our clients are paying for us to do, versus some kind of percentage of assets relationship. And there's times where we'll do percentage of assets mainly on investments, but it's predominantly this unbundled services that has set us apart on delivering incredibly high quality services that we very purposely have insourced inside of Pathstone to control that experience, versus a lot of the times you've seen some more outsourced services on bill pay, accounting, tax, et cetera.
Of course, starting up a firm that offers a customizable menu of services across many different disciplines isn't easy, even with the strong vision and years of experience that Matt and his co-founders had. I asked Matt what some of the early challenges were in the foundational years at Pathstone.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the first thing, even to this day, which blows my mind, there's absolutely no technology in the family office space. It's literally like we're in the dark ages. And my theory behind it is that the market is not quite big enough that it makes sense for a company to come in and create a commercial piece of software because there's not a lot of businesses like ours that are solely dedicated to the ultra high net worth. And so because of that, we've had to build a lot of technology ourselves in-house. So in the early days, we built our own optimizers. We built technology that created a bridge between performance reporting and general ledger accounting systems. And as we became of size, I think that the interesting genesis on this is, getting bigger to just get bigger doesn't really make sense. But I will tell you, when we started to hit scale, and I remember we were right about $10 billion at the time, you actually could start creating some real budgets on the technology space. And you fast forward to where we are today as a $100 billion organization, we can now spend millions of dollars on technology, where that scale will truly set us apart from anyone else that we're working with because you can't create it. And there's still no software out there. And we've built something, we call it Arrow. It stands for Accounting, Reporting, Rebalancing, Optimization, and Workflow. And it's a best in breed tool that essentially allows you to work directly with the custodians and tax software and performance reporting and bill pay and anything else that optimizers and rebalancers to work in a single interface to allow you to do that for a firm. So that was probably, I'd say, one of the challenges that the industry faces that we were solving from scale. The other big challenge that we had is that we didn't have enough adults in the room. And we had some really pivotal conversations with two investment bankers that are still close friends of ours today. And in 2014, where we had, 50 clients, $4 billion or so in assets, so call it a little under $100 million average client size, we came to this inflection point that we needed more leadership, we needed more capabilities, we needed the right people, and that's when we took on our first investor in 2014 and went on a national search to find a company that would complement what we were doing. And that's when, again, very fortunate to meet my partner and the president of the firm, Kelly Maregni, with a firm called Federal Street Advisors in Boston. And so all of a sudden, we went from a $4 billion firm to an $8 billion firm. They had in-house research. We outsourced research. We brought a lot of technology and energy to the platform and services. And all of a sudden, you've now created this initial $8 billion business that had institutional consulting level research paired with best-in-class services at Pathstone. And that was kind of the start. And we've had 3 rounds of investors come through Pathstone since then, in 14, 19, and 23. And it's really kind of proven out the model of the ecosystem of the stock that, you can have a business. And the biggest issue that I think plagues the industry to this day is that founders create these businesses. The businesses now become too valuable to transition to the next gen, and you have to sell them. And I'll say with the ecosystem of the stock that we've created at Pathstone, one of our founding partners we bought out in 19 and in 23. We've had 8 or 9 other people retire. And we know that every 4 to 6 years with our private equity investors that there's going to be an event. And now all of a sudden, Pathstone has gone through a full succession through our life cycle ourselves. We've had 3 investors come through. And all of a sudden, you have a way to really keep a private perpetual partnership without having to sell the company as you have succession issues. So I'd say it's been a really fascinating part of the journey, has been bringing in outside investors to create an ecosystem for the stock and finding the right partners throughout the country to join forces with us to have a business that's still focused on organic growth first. But if we find the right outside partners on the inorganic side, we've combined with 12 other firms in our 14-year history to help create the business that's here today.
As you'll hear throughout the episode, one of the key successes Pathstone has had in developing their client experience is having customizable in-house services. They have brought on a lot of these multifamily office services by being incredibly thoughtful about their mergers and acquisitions. Even still, as often as M&A happens in our industry, your first merger or acquisition is never easy, and it takes discipline to build the M&A muscle. Here's Matt on some of the lessons he learned in their first acquisition of a firm called Federal Street.
The lesson is it's not easy, and the lesson is if you haven't done it and you're thinking about it, it's going to be a lot of work. The part that's amazing when I look back to it is, so I live in New Jersey, and Federal Street was in Boston. I pretty much moved to Boston for almost a year, and until they kicked me out. But the business model of what we were trying to do was a fully integrated model, not to have any kind of offices that are affiliates. It was one P&L that was very important to us from the start, and that the fact that we all win and lose together. Another big piece of it that I'll say has really been a catalyst and a very important part of the business is that we equitized a large group of people in the business as well and made a lot of shareholders. So even from the very start, we've always run at almost 50% shareholders to number of team members at the firm. And it really helps set the direction for it. But, you had two reporting systems at the simplest point. I won't embarrass my old friends in Boston, but they might have been in Excel when we first met them. And how do you bring
would not be alone.
How do you bring Excel from 1984 into automated systems? And so it was just a tremendous amount of work. But what it did do is it did garner the experience for the future. And we actually, a couple of our old friends a year later called us. They were at another RIA that was having some issues. And so all of a sudden we had a LA and DC office on top of that. And we used some of those lessons, but I'll just say we learned together. And fast forward, so I guess that was 10 years ago. We have a 26-page playbook that obviously changes. Our chief of staff helps run the integration. We have 2 full-time integrators and optimizers that are there on the ground. But as I say all this, you still have to build relationships, and it's all about one firm. So it's time. And I'll say to this day, Kelly and I still spend a tremendous amount of time working with the offices that combine with us because it's creates this special and unique bonds that are there. But we've built out operational teams, reporting teams, integration teams, et cetera, as the firm has become larger to make this, not just Matt and Kelly, flying to a location to try and combine. And the truth is you can't truly institutionalize it. Every firm's different. Everyone has different capabilities. And I'll say one of the most exciting things about the combinations is how much we learn. We think we're pretty smart people. We don't know everything. We learn new things on the marketing front, business development, new capabilities on venture cap or private equity or private equity seeding. I can go on and on and on. And then meeting special, unique people who were in a phenomenal business in a regional location. There's just so many stories. The entire leadership team of Pathstone today is made up of really special individuals we've met at some other firms throughout the country who've combined from diverse backgrounds to create something that I believe didn't exist prior. And so that's another, I'll just say, really exciting part of this is just the people and the capabilities that you meet throughout the process.
Kelly Maregni is the former leader of Federal Street and the current president at Pathstone. I was curious how she managed communication to her clients at the point of the merger and what it was like uniting the two firms' working styles and whether or not she would characterize the process as easy.
Of course not, Meg. You know the answer to that. No, absolutely not. I mean, it's this process. It's a lot of hard work, and we have learned so much along the way. I always joke about it that when Matt and I first came together, we brought our firms together, we had absolutely no idea what we were doing. But what we did learn is the most important piece of it is the training, it's the development, it's communication. So much of bringing together all of these teams is about human behavior. It's about managing personalities. It's about managing expectations. But most importantly, it's about how you communicate that. It's a journey. It's not a flip of a switch from day one. The process of integrating is really almost a 3-year process. And so what we have learned is that the first, I would say, half year of that really involves learning from one another. And so we have set up full day boot camps where we bring our professional services team leads to our new offices. And, one, most importantly, they're getting to meet their other team members. But two, they're learning about how we offer those services. Because as advisors, as I said, our greatest thing we have is the relationship with our clients. And rightfully so, our advisors are protective of introducing anything or anyone new to those relationships. So no different than when you're recommending an outside provider or partner, our internal team members have to gain that trust with the advisors as well. It's key to the process.
We'll return to this core tenet of training later in the episode, as it has become a pillar of Pathstone's success. But for now, let's jump back into the early days of the firm. Pathstone had established their vision of building a national brand for the ultra high net worth, and they were rapidly growing, but still relatively small. I was curious how they reached the next phase of growth. I asked Matt what their growth strategy was in the early days.
So the intro, it was all just word of mouth, especially during that 2014 to 2019, 2015 to 2019 period. The firm grew by $6 billion organic. It went from 10 billion to 16 billion. It was an unbelievable time. It was an unbelievable proof point of the business model and the vision of what we were trying to do. And we've continued to grow at that speed. I mean, I think that's the one part, and we feel very fortunate and very blessed as I say that, is that finding new clients has never been an issue at the firm. And it's because of the level of service, level of professionalism, and I'll say that focus on perfecting the client experience that is a day in and day out part of what we do. So without organic, and I do think there's a formula that if the business is not growing at least 10% net every year, I saw this in the prior firm that I was at 17 years ago. Once the firm stops growing, you don't have the right promotions, you don't have the right raises, you don't have the right career pathing.
Right.
And I have to say, it's been a really fascinating part of it is that there's no lack of opportunity with the growth that we've had, and people who've wanted to step up have had these unbelievable careers. And because of the equity structure, not only can you make great cash comp, but you also can build your net worth and really becomes a destination for your career. So that time period was Boston, LA, and DC, and it was just organic with great, incredibly talented people until we got to an inflection point where our first investor was convertible debt, and I'm not going to say we Pathstone didn't start out of a garage, but it might have started in an office in New Jersey with folding tables originally in 2010. But at that point in time, the business was growing, was becoming more professional, and we took out debt to grow the business. And once the business was at a certain size, which was in 2019, that's when we took on an equity partner. Okay. And I'd say that was probably the biggest change, was the ability and flexibility to have an equity partner versus convertible debt.
The question of whether or not to introduce private equity comes up a lot in this podcast. Pathstone in particular stands out for the ways that they have been able to leverage private equity investments to exponentially grow the company. I also love speaking with these outside investors because it provides valuable insight into what makes our growth leaders so unique. Let's hear from Brad Armstrong, a partner with Lovell Minnick Partners and board member of Pathstone, on what drew him into the initial partnership.
Well, first and foremost, we've been investors in wealth management for the entirety of our 25-year history. And so we came into the discussions with Pathstone with that bank of history and industry perspective. And just to rewind a little bit, if you go all the way back to, for example, our Fund 1 from the very late 90s, one of our most successful investments in that fund was a firm everyone knows today called AssetMark, which provides a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the software and services used by financial advisory firms. We came into the conversations with, I'd say, a very well-developed view of the industry, and so we immediately appreciated what was so unique about their business. What we particularly liked was their exclusive focus on multifamily office clients. We saw a real market opportunity with that client base. They have very complex lives and complex financial needs, and Pathstone had this unique mousetrap around servicing those families that have multi-generational needs. They have multi-generational wealth. They need investment solutions. They need services. And we had always had our eye on that market segment, and what really stood out was that they had this really unique offering for attacking that particular market segment.
With Pathstone's strong foundation and early growth, I asked what Brad identified as the early growth strategy with their first investment into the business.
The first thing that really stands out was that we didn't show up looking to change things in a transformational way that would deviate from the vision and the strategy of the team. And that's really critical because we when we come into a new investment, we want to be aligned around that, and we want to be the accelerators and the enablers of that strategy. Really help the team to execute, and so some of the kind of original tenets that we wanted to pursue around growth. One was to invest in technology. It's easy to say that, but in the spring of 2020, when the markets were melting down, no one was on pace to hit their budget, and a lot of us had higher order concerns in life. I remember when we sat down with our leadership team and the board, and we more than doubled our technology budget because that was a really critical driver and enabler to how they could engage with clients in a virtual world. And it's become a real driver to what's enabled growth and kind of scaling since then. But a number of other things that have that occurred to us then and have further developed over the years. One of them was just the further expansion of services. They have this incredible menu of services for clients. I think it was 8 pages at the time. I believe it's 12 today. And so further expanding those services, doing a lot of work around segmentation, some bundling and other things that really help to smooth kind of the delivery and the client experience around consuming that. There was so much growth in Pathstone, sometimes looking for more efficient ways to deliver on that growth, obviously very critical. And then finally, through acquisitions. And one of the things that was unique with Pathstone, most of our investments when we first come into the equation, in most instances, our companies have never made an acquisition in the past, and they don't even know where to start. And so we kind of started at ground zero. In the case of Pathstone, they had made several acquisitions. This was a team that had done so successfully, and so we didn't need to spool that up from scratch day one. But there was such a tremendous opportunity set. What we wanted to do was add process and rigor and really act as an extension of the team in pursuing acquisitions. And we've had a lot of success from year one and onwards.
One of the major investments that Brad and Pathstone focused on was addressing their biggest challenge, building out technology that met the needs of their clients. Here's Brad on how they set their strategy for building out the tech budget.
I'll credit one of our board members in particular. We had a bit of an ace up our sleeve. I mentioned AssetMark earlier. Perhaps not coincidentally, Ron Cordes, who was a longtime CEO and one of the co-founders at AssetMark, is a member of our advisory council and is a member of the Pathstone board. And so Ron was a bit of the ace up our sleeve in providing both us and the team with a really good sounding board from someone who had built a really world class in effect integration layer that was powering the middle and back offices for just thousands and thousands of advisors. And so we leaned on Ron for a lot of that vision and guidance to the team. But Matt's vision was actually quite sound from the start, and Pathstone had the benefit of starting as in a cloud native environment without the some of the baggage of legacy infrastructure. They knew what good looked like when they started to build this, and they had a certain predisposition towards building technology in a what we consider to be the smart version of technology enablement, which is be a world class integrator and sort of integration layer among different hub and spoke solutions. And I think that's a big part of the beauty in what they've built in their infrastructure, which is there's an awful lot of customization in that middle layer that makes these different spokes connect in separately. So they can deal with dozens and dozens of different custodians and multiple asset classes, different reporting systems, different CRM systems. They can accommodate all forms of predecessor infrastructure because they own the integration layer, and they've done the hard part, which was part of what we finance, which was the build out of just the internal people and capabilities that can power all that.
Let's go back to Matt on how he's seen the impact of private equity on the firm.
I mean, I remember in 2019, we were faced with, at the crossroads. And the crossroads was, do we go and take out a bunch of debt, buy out our convertible debt partner, who is a phenomenal partner to us, and helped us grow to this day, or do we take on a private equity sponsor? And I will tell you that looking back on it, there is no way that we ever would have been able to grow in the fashion that we have while maintaining the level of service and enhancing that to our clients if we did not take on a professional investor. And some of the things, they're simple from the playbook. You just mentioned them. Having some professional management come in, creating a real board. We have phenomenal independent board members. We have Mark Tibergien, former from Pershing. We have Ron Cordes, who founded AssetMark, and we also had the head of business development from Focus Financial, Vamsi, and having real board meetings. I know that I'm smiling as I'm saying this. And not to say we didn't have the right meetings prior to this, but writing a 5-year strategic plan and putting that on paper. These are things that you probably don't stop and do. And creating these strategic plans, making sure you have the right people in the right seats, professionalizing management, and then executing on that vision and having capital behind you to do so. That's really what's helped set us apart, and all these other things around the ecosystem of the stock and people who've grown businesses being in your corner. I'll say it's been a very interesting experience. I'll say as folks who invest in private equity funds for a living on behalf of our clients, working as I'll call it an operator with an investor, and those lines have been drawn very well. We run the business. We have a great team of people that have come together, and we have phenomenal investors that I'll say when you're looking for advice, have phenomenal advice and to be able to give. And so they've just been, I'll say, some of the best, cheerleaders and backers that we could have asked for through all three experiences of investors as we sit here today.
So far, we've heard about the early days of Pathstone and how they built out a focused niche business to address the needs of ultra high net worth clients. After the break, we'll hear more from Kelly and Matt about what the company looks like today and some of the strategies they have built to develop their internal talent and maintain an impeccable client experience as the company has grown. We'll also speak with Chief Marketing Officer Lauren Fryefield on what it has been like to come on as Pathstone's first ever Chief Marketing Officer and the strategies they are implementing for the future. Stay tuned. Are you looking to supercharge the growth journey at your business? FICOM is ready to make it happen by serving as your embedded growth partner. Let us put our unmatched industry and growth marketing expertise to work for your business. Our strategy-first, multidisciplinary approach ensures your business goals stay at the forefront, so you're always aligning all your marketing activity around the growth you want to achieve. Visit us at ficompartners.com to find out more. All right, we're back. In the first half, you heard about the origins of Pathstone and their bespoke approach to providing in-house services to their ultra high net worth clients. In the intervening years, Pathstone has been able to maintain an impressive, consistent growth rate of 10%. I asked President Kelly Maregni how she believed they were able to drive that growth.
That's really tremendous growth. And especially as we continue to grow, and 10%, and you think of that when you are an $8 billion firm, what that means and what those mean in dollar terms as a $100 billion firm, it's very different. But I attribute it to three main things. And the first one, which is just really simple, but I think it's at the core of it, it's serving our existing clients really, really well. And that is something that as we continue on this growth journey, I think Pathstone really always keeps at front and center. And how can we create the best possible client experience? How can we always be continuously looking around corners for our clients? And continuing to serve them in a way that makes them want to candidly refer clients to us. So that's the first piece of it. I think the second piece of it is creating a culture as we continue to grow where we are winning together. And, that means in the spirit of if one particular advisor brings in a lead and that family is best suited working with another team, creating a culture where it's not one team against another team, but let's bring together the best talent in order to serve our clients. So that's been a really, really important part of our growth story. And I think as we continue to bring together talented people, it only accelerates that growth for us. And then the third piece, which is one that I don't think isn't as intuitive to people when they think about the organic growth piece, but it's training and development, right? It's creating a culture from the very beginning when our team members walk through the door that this is a growth environment. And that doesn't mean that it's meeting quotas every quarter of how many clients or prospects you're closing. It just means how are you as an individual going to use your skill set in order to help accelerate Pathstone's growth. And so we pour a lot into that training and development piece as well.
This tenacity for client experience is deeply embedded in the culture of Pathstone. They are obsessed with every touch point of the client experience from the very first inquiry that draws newcomers in. Here's CEO Matt on the importance of client experience for growth.
So our head of growth is more around business development process and execution.
Got it. Yep.
Than necessarily going out business development themselves.
And hunting, right.
But that group of people do take the inbound emails and phone calls, and someone could test this if they want. Who listens? If you send an email there, you'll get a call back in minutes. It's something that we're crazy about it, and because we know that's who we are, that's the type of service we provide. And I will tell you, someone sends an email at 10:40 at night and their phone rings at 10:45. It's making a statement.
And that's all done in-house. That's not outsourced offshore.
It's in-house. It's in-house. And so that is just, that's the culture of who we are and what we do. And it's been very successful. So that team, what they do, and the head of growth is very strong on issue spotting and having that first conversation.
Amazing.
And then we will effectively then hand that off quickly to the local team of who should serve that client. And the process goes from there. So we do centralize the inbound. The volume is not at the point that it's not that you needed a call center or something like that.
Right. Not the large families. Right.
But Meg, you would be shocked. It's multiple inbound a week, sometimes multiple a day.
For Kelly, the key to client experience is also about being as adaptable as possible to meet the changing needs of the clients.
So the client experience, first of all, for us is everything. We don't make widgets, as we like to say. We don't sell products. What we do is we build relationships and we offer our clients an experience. And I think that for us, that means creating and continuing to think about the various touch points that we have with our clients. You asked the question of what that journey has looked like, and quite candidly, I think we're still on that journey as we bring together really talented, smart individuals. We're doing that with the mindset of our clients' needs are always evolving. And so we constantly have to be evolving. So that's the piece that's core. It is continuing to think about what additional services do we need to have under our umbrella in order to continue to serve the rising generation, to continue to serve a broader audience of clients as we enter different regions and different markets. And so it's that mindset of always be evolving and always thinking outside the box as to what the client's needs are.
So what does it actually look like for the client past the first phone call? I was curious what it was like to navigate a 12-page menu of services with the depth and breadth of capabilities that Pathstone's advisory team brings to all clients. Here's Matt with a little more insight into the structure of the firm.
So you typically have a core team of 3 people. That core team quickly becomes larger, but you have someone who leads the team, someone in a chair 2, and I'll say someone more in an associate role. The part that you'll find interesting is your chair 1 and chair 2 and chair 3 is not a mix of investment people. Depending on what the work is, someone in tax may be leading the relationship. Someone in our accounting and financial reporting or bill pay department might be sitting in the chair 2. So we've had a unique structure where we really try, and it's not quite call it a spider web, but we don't have teams. And we don't do that for a couple of reasons. The first is a lot of the times a family needs different levels of expertise to work with them on a day-to-day basis. And the other part is because as I keep saying, this is an apprenticeship business, it's very hard to just learn from one person. So we're a very, very, very big believer in having that chair 2 work with different managing directors to learn different skill sets from different people. And then it also depends what services you consume. So if you have tax, and someone from tax may be on the team, so a team could be 4. I think the largest team that we have today at the firm is a 16-person team that serves a multi-billion-dollar family. And they're consuming everything that you could think of from that we discussed today. And so it starts as a 3-person team and then grows out from there, depending on what services you consume.
I want to pick up on something that Matt mentioned there. Pathstone has structured their advisory team as an apprenticeship business. It's a hard word to say. They are deeply committed to developing their next-gen talent to take on their next-gen clients. This oncoming transition point has been talked about a lot, both on this podcast and more broadly in the industry. What will wealth transfer look like, and how do we prepare a new class of advisors to take it on? I asked Matt if he was seeing a generational divide.
It's a great question. It's like I said, this is an apprenticeship business, and so people do learn. But when we build teams, we very purposely create multi-generational teams for multi-generational families. And so what happens, I'll say somewhat organically or naturally, and this was, again, these are all learning lessons that we had and have about what teams we present clients as they come in. We do have offices and all over in over 20 locations throughout the country today. And so we actually don't always, let's say if someone is in Seattle, they may not work with a team in Seattle depending on what their needs are for the family. But if we see that we are, interacting with a G1 and G2 or G2 and G3, we very much try and line up advisors in similar brackets with them. So a lot of the times, if you have I'll say a Generation 2 advisor with the Generation 2 client, they will get referrals from that next gen in a similar way. So you're right. We don't do sales training. We don't do role plays and things like this on that. It really is the relationship side of it, of who our clients are working with. And when you have a multi-generational team, that does tend to happen.
Kelly in particular is focused on how Pathstone develops their talent. I asked her what the firm had built out to ensure this apprenticeship and training was taking place.
I think it's one of the greatest parts about Pathstone is that, we truly believe that if our people are happy, our clients will be happy and we're going to be successful. And so we have, since the very beginning, when we were an $8 billion firm, we have always put an investment in our people and creating different training programs. And, 10 years ago, that might have been a brown bag lunch series. And Today we've turned that brown bag lunch series into Path to Succeed, which is a program that we've created for our rising advisors. It's a year-long program in which we bring in outside career coaches. They do cohort training, they do individual training, and then it ends with a retreat in Austin, Texas, with all of their peers. So we've always had a focus on this, but I think as we have gained scale in resources, we've been able to pour so much more into that piece of what we do.
In the RIA space, a big hiccup to bringing up the next generation of talent is the fear that they can't sacrifice the resources to support someone who may not be bringing in the same revenue as a tenured advisor. I asked Kelly if this concern had come up with the leadership at Pathstone.
It's not. And as you say that, I'm smiling because I think shame on that founder, because I'm sure that they have a tremendous network, but that network was not built overnight. And
Right.
I think what is one of the most challenging pieces for a founder of the firm is what legacy they're going to leave, right? And I think they have to understand that they can leave a legacy and it doesn't have to look exactly like how they built it. And so I think they need to have that open mindset of, maybe you did your business on the golf course and your COIs were all CPAs. You need to really understand and lean into, what is this rising generation of advisors? What are they interested in? Like, where can they bring their passion? It might be in an entirely different way, but might be even more relatable to that next generation. So I think you have to have a really open mindset when trying to create that culture of training and development, and knowing that just because this is the way that I did it and this is what gives me energy, isn't necessarily what's going to be the passion of the next generation, or even of the next generation of clients or our families.
Okay, so Pathstone has built out their technology and intentionally expanded their service offerings. They have been mastering customer experience and developing an expanded pool of talent with diverse areas of expertise. But until very recently, all of their organic growth at the firm was coming purely from word of mouth referrals. Their next question was how to get to the next stage of growth. Well, part of the answer turned out to be a second major investment from Brad and his partners at Lovell Minnick, and a new strategic investment from private equity firm Kelso. Kelso will sound familiar to loyal listeners of Growth Leaders who have listened to episode 6 with Savant, which is one of our most listened to podcast episodes to date. Similar to what we're about to hear from Pathstone, Kelso came in to Savant as a second PE investor while their original investor stayed active. As we discussed in the Savant episode, 2 private equity investors in one RIA is not terribly common. I asked Brad how that came to be.
No, that's a great question. It's very unusual for us to make multiple cornerstone or platform, we'll sometimes call them platform investments. And it's not because we don't want to, it's because our own industry it doesn't have a lot of the technology for doing that. Some of that is starting to develop, but it's very atypical for us to do it. It's the kind of thing you only do for exceptional performers and in exceptional circumstances. What we really saw with Pathstone, as much as we accomplished a tremendous amount with one another in the first 4 years of our relationship together, we were equally, if not more, bullish about the opportunity we saw on the horizon, and so it took a lot of creativity on our part and a little more innovation to figure out how to do this in a way that works for all parties. But what we're particularly excited about is it provided a level of continuity for the leadership team. It provided a lot of continuity around the clients themselves. But we also got to bring in a very familiar face, our partners at Kelso, who became investors alongside us in Pathstone a year ago. We've known the Kelso organization for decades. There have been various businesses that we've looked at together, and one business in particular that we owned and ultimately sold to them. It's been a fantastic performer for both of our firms. And so there was just a lot of good shared history, and it was somebody that we were really comfortable coming into this partnership. And so very, very unique set of circumstances. Great question. And I wish we could do this with all of our great investments. Our industry is not quite there yet on the technology, but maybe one day.
Pathstone took the additional investments to continue the pace of innovation and growth. One of the new areas of investment that Pathstone focused on at this time was marketing. In 2022, the board brought on Pathstone's very first chief marketing officer, Lauren Fryefield. I asked her what it was like to step into a firm that had been relying on word of mouth and didn't have an existing marketing infrastructure.
Sure. Great question. So certainly Pathstone, did marketing before I joined. There was a team. They focused a lot on content, and a lot of what they did was more reactive. So when I joined the firm, I certainly did my listening tour and really got to know Pathstone, and was really so impressed with the breadth and depth of expertise and the services that Pathstone had to offer, and really figured out pretty quickly that, wow, this Pathstone is really the great untold story. It really has this great set of assets and capabilities, but the brand awareness is just really low. So I, leveraged, the experience that I came to Pathstone with from my time of working at American Express and NetJets, and developing multi-channel strategies targeted to the ultra high net worth, to really figure out how to use marketing as a driver of growth for the firm. So I really focused on a few key areas. I focused on branding, how to tell the story of Pathstone, how to create those differentiators, and really sort of evolve the branding to be Pathstone, the family office, and focused on powered by innovation, built for every generation, and exitly delivered as sort of some of the key differentiators of the firm, and really helped better articulate the Pathstone story. But then realized that the firm, we needed to invest in marketing technology so that we had the data and the technology to be able to deliver segmented and targeted and relevant communications to our prospects and clients. And thirdly, really leaned into digital as a way of using digital technology and tools to have relevant and targeted messaging, and really be efficient and effective in our marketing strategies.
While Lauren was lucky to already have the buy-in from the leadership team to make large strategic investments into marketing, she was still met with skepticism that the ultra high net worth client would respond to digital marketing campaigns. I asked her how her years of experience with this kind of client informed her digital strategy and what insights she had gained so far.
So, hearing you, make that comment sort of reminds me of, the early days when I was at NetJets, or, was, 2000, 2013, and, early on having conversations with you. So we really need to invest in a website. And, I think back then it was still, that business case was being built, but sort of saw very quickly that, whether someone is super wealthy or not, I think everybody now these days is not looking to purchase any product without going online and looking at their website. Their website is a billboard for any type of company of any size, of any scale, whether they're targeting the ultra high net worth or mass market. So, when we all live in this sort of highly digital world, and certainly it's gotten even more so that way, in the last 10 or so years, now that we all are carrying around phones that have all these capabilities, and people are buying things on their phone. But I remember, even at NetJets, we had someone buy a jet on the phone without ever interacting in person with someone, which is like, oh, that would never happen. And so I think I, certainly and we started to lean into using some digital tools at NetJets pretty early on, because, and certainly leveraging that experience at Pathstone, because the power of data to find the right people. I mean, when you're selling not a mass market product, a product like Pathstone, where the segment that we're targeting is so specific, I could waste a lot of money in our advertising if we really weren't using modeling and other sort of data mining techniques to really find the right people and getting our message to the right folks. My business development colleagues would not be very happy with me if I was driving unqualified leads. It would not be a good use of anybody's time, and be very frustrating for prospects as well if they come to us and then we're not the right fit. So digital and data all coming together now really and so much of what we did at NetJets manually, there are now databases and resources that are automated to do that. And to them, finding where people are having liquidity events or CEOs are retiring. We used to do that manually. I used to have someone on my team that would like every day read the Wall Street Journal and, write it down. And now a lot of those things, there are databases out there where you can find that information more efficiently and effectively.
With her years of experience speaking to an ultra high net worth client, Lauren knew that they couldn't be treated as a monolith. With Pathstone addressing multi-generational families, single-family offices, institutions, and endowments, I was curious how she adjusted her strategy to speak to each segment of the business.
Yeah, I think this is something that every marketer needs to do because just about every product has different segments and different needs. So this first, the umbrella messaging, those things about Pathstone of who we are and what we do and what we deliver, that should apply to, everybody, those sort of base core messaging. But then it's about identifying those segments and identifying those needs, and then using data and content to develop the message that's most relevant to that group. So it's about, it's all about the right message to the right person at the right time and really creating, meaningful connections, and really being relevant and targeted. And certainly the space that we work in, people sort of expect that we know who they are and talk to them in a way that's relevant and meaningful, and that we bring the services and things that we can do for them that's specific to them. We bring that to the forefront, and we don't just talk about the whole laundry list of everything that we can do, but we're as targeted and relevant to what we know about their particular situation and their segment.
I would imagine that you're probably creating a lot of content to support that. Is that right?
Yeah, and we need to, content is what marketing is all about these days, because there's more tools and there's more ways, and you can do things so much, more quickly. When I started my career, everything was like, you see creative and it would be tissues on, boards, and it would take a long time to go from, the creative team would take a long time from a concept to actually seeing. Now, you can see creative, you can have a conversation and they can be showing you creative the next day. So everything, the world is moving so much faster. We have the capability of getting things out so much faster and having retargeting and follow-up and lead nurture campaigns. So there is just a need for more and more content. And what I've been trying to do is, as we sort of continue on this path at Pathstone, really focus on the low-hanging fruit first, and sort of building out a plan to sort of crawl, walk, run, and so that we get there in an effective way. And that as we go on this journey, that we focus on the things that have the most likely return on investment, and then continue to build that out. A lot of test and learning is going on, as it should be, I think, and any marketer should be doing that because everything evolves. But we're certainly at that place at Pathstone to continue to evolve and test into what strategies are working and learn from those that don't, and we continue to refine. But content is a big need.
In the world of wealth management, and all businesses for that matter, marketers always have to keep a keen eye on showing the return for all this investment. It's not always easy to draw a clear line from the words on a website page to signing a new client. I asked Lauren if she was able to show ROI to the leadership of Pathstone and how much of the growth she could attribute to her and her team's marketing efforts.
It is a big problem, and many advertising agencies are, spend a lot of time trying to build models to sort of show multi-touch attribution and last touch attribution. We could get really geeky on this, but we won't go deep into that. But I would say, fortunately, we've been able to show ROI based on direct attribution. And so been trying to show, look at organic search and some other measures of brand awareness to sort of show that hey, these things that we're doing in marketing are contributing to the growth of the firm, holistically, to show that sort of growth and brand awareness. But in terms of specific campaigns and things like that, conservatively, if you look and you're able, so far we've been able to show return with direct attribution. And so then you just know that it's probably, the impact is even greater than that. So,
right.
But, as, it will probably, come up over time, but we do look at, I do get, sort of credit, so to speak, for leads that come through the website. even if they aren't, so I can track the ones that come directly from digital campaigns, but even those that come to the website are attributed to marketing because the thinking is they got to the website because of some sort of marketing activity. So that helps. But we also look at those people that directly come, and we do what we can to sort of track back with cookies and things like that to sort of follow the trail. But it is a complex and challenging question that marketers wave their hands a lot to sort of show the value.
I know
what they're doing, and sort of build that faith that brand awareness is the hardest thing to. Everyone knows you need it, but it's sort of hard to sort of size it and figure out it's what causes it. It's sort of a multitude of everything, but it's sort of hard to measure directly.
So what does Lauren see for the future of Pathstone and how the evolving marketing strategy will continue to drive growth?
Well, it all comes back to storytelling and making sure that Pathstone becomes the known story instead of the great untold story. Our conversion rate is very high when we're able to sit across the table and talk to a prospect and explain to them the breadth and depth of what Pathstone is able to offer all within in-house. And oftentimes prospects will say, I didn't know that a firm like Pathstone existed. And so there's just such great we know, there's hundreds of thousands of ultra high net worth families and probably more than that could really, and of course today we only have a small fraction of that. So really there's just so much power in terms of telling the story and using multi-channels in terms of digital, PR, events, a whole muster of things to tell our story and get it out there and really act as a leader. And PR is a piece in terms of getting our experts and thought leaders out there. Just this multi-pronged approach to get our story known and to make people realize what Pathstone has to offer and how we can really provide solutions to serve their families. And I've talked a lot about digital and these sort of channels that touch people, but not through person to person. But in the end, we're in the people business. And so a lot of what we're doing in marketing is sort of setting the umbrella, setting the stage, bringing those leads. But at the end of the day, it's about how we deliver and how we perfect the client experience, what you alluded to in terms of how we serve our clients in sort of amazing expert ways. And so, that's really the core of what sells our product. I can sort of bring leads to come in and then have my colleagues talk to them. But, if we aren't delivering in terms of how we serve our clients, we won't be successful. The good news is I came into Pathstone as a marketer. I was like, wow, the substance is here. Like it's amazing what our firm is able to do and the expertise that we have across so many different areas. And so as a marketer, it's such a great opportunity because I feel confident that the substance is there and I'm not sort of smoke and mirrors and waving my hands, but, the substance is there. And I think just coming back to, we are in the people business and at the end of the day, we're going to gain clients and support clients based on the individual relationships they have with our advisors and that trust they have with people. And the things that I'm doing is sort of just bringing them in to have that conversation.
For Kelly, she sees the future in growing and developing her team to meet the needs of next generation clients.
I think that the greatest opportunity over the next year and the next coming years is that what we've done really well, and in this growth journey that we've been on in the last 14 years, Pathstone is poised for this wealth transfer. And, you see the headlines on this, we see the data points behind it. But I feel like what we've been doing and what we've talked about today in training the next generation and thinking about what it is that clients need in this next chapter and what does the rising generation need and what does the current generation need to feel comfortable to take that step in wealth transfer. It means so much more than just building out a robust investment platform. It means thinking holistically about wealth planning. It means bringing in the human capital side of that experience for our clients and our families and in marrying that with the technical side of what wealth planning and transfer and estate planning means. And I think we have spent the last 14 years, really thinking about that so that we are ready for that, bringing on trust capabilities and trust solutions for our families, building out our wealth planning team and our family and governance team, but also just getting our advisors ready for what that next chapter looks like, and having conversations with our families that go beyond their portfolios, because it's a different generation and they're looking for so much more from their advisor than just a quarterly report and an investment update. And I think really getting people ready for those types of conversations has put us in such a tremendous opportunity for that wealth transfer phase.
For Matt, he is looking forward to growing his vision to become a national brand for the ultra high net worth.
I will tell you, there's no national brand today that serves the ultra high net worth in 100% fiduciary fashion. I kind of chuckle in a couple different ways. The first is that we have 700 families that average $100 million. The latest study I saw shows that there are north of 230,000 families in the U.S. with north of $30 million.
Wow.
So as I sit here today, Pathstone has absolutely zero market share. So there's no other way to say that there's this unbelievable blue ocean for our business to continue to grow organically and inorganically over the next chapter. And I do believe we have this. We know that we have 4 to 6 year chapters that will step up private equity firms. There's quite a bit of runway to be able to do that before you come back and say, should we go public? Do we take on a permanent, non-permanent partner that's out there? But I know that we will maintain and continue to be 100% fiduciary to our clients, and I think we can triple, quadruple, et cetera, from where we are in this current chapter. And I'll say it's incredibly helpful when you have those chapters, because it also allows you, again, in the private equity world, you just said they get a bad name. But I feel like what no one talks about is also all these incentive programs that become created with them and allows us to continue to equitize folks at our firm. So as we sit here today, we have over 235 shareholders out of 550 people. These are things you never would have been able to do without the incentive programs that become created, and create an ecosystem for our stock so that folks who are founders or folks who are looking to retire can actually do so at full market clearing prices without selling the business. So as I sit here today, I still think we're in the first or second inning of this. The other part that I find really fascinating is that if you take us and a couple of the largest firms that serve in our space, you're only talking about $250 to $300 billion, while someone like Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley have $6 or $7 trillion, or JP Morgan. So we still are minuscule and tiny, and there's a story to be told here. I think eventually a couple of these firms will continue to combine, and I'm making up numbers here. Is it $1 trillion that someone has to be at, or a couple firms, to truly challenge the banks and the broker dealers? But I don't think that's 15 or 20 years away. I think that's 5 to 10 years away, as you're seeing just incredible explosive growth in the RIA business. And we look to be the absolute leaders as we continue to push forward.
Pathstone has honed their domain in the ultra high net worth community to develop long-lasting, multi-generational clients that will grow with the company. They have maintained 10% organic growth year over year, largely from word of mouth, and are now investing in marketing their story and seeing even higher returns. By having a customized matrix of services and adaptive advisor teams with specialized talents, they are able to meet the wide-ranging needs of their client base. Their teams also have a fervent drive for client experience that adapts and acts quickly from the very first inquiry. Pathstone has also leaned into partnerships with private equity to launch themselves into higher and higher phases of growth. After my time speaking with Matt, Kelly, and Lauren at Pathstone, and Brad from Lovell Minnick, here are my key takeaways. 1. Confidently go. While popular belief had been that the ultra wealthy only want to work with globally recognized private banks, Pathstone did not hesitate to launch their business as an independent RIA, and as a result have been met with very few competitors. By ignoring conventional wisdom that the ultra high net worth clientele would only work with the big banks, they were able to address an untapped desire from ultra high net worth families for a conflict-free, bespoke approach to wealth management. 2. Stay obsessive about client experience. When dealing with clients of their caliber, Pathstone has shown that care and consideration for their clients makes their services feel all the more valuable and sets them apart from a bigger, more faceless bank. 3. Use private equity to grow what works without sacrificing the culture of your company. Pathstone used their investments to build a strong board, double down on M&A, develop technology that was sorely needed, and grow their marketing efforts. By thoughtfully engaging new partners, they strengthen their brand instead of fundamentally changing it. 4. Branding and digital marketing works with ultra high net worth people. Pathstone has an incredible culture and a wide range of services, and it cannot be taken for granted that they have grown off of their client experience. But prospects who aren't already in the client network may never know about these amazing services if you don't take the time to promote them. While so many firms believe that you can't prospect for whale clients online, Pathstone's marketing success is proving that theory wrong. 5. Foster a culture of mentorship within your advisors. Because Pathstone works with families building multi-generational legacies, they also dedicated themselves to building a multi-generational legacy of advisors. With patience and deep training, advisors are able to elevate into their own unique abilities, find areas of the business that they're really passionate about, and grow their expertise as their clients grow alongside them. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. We'd love to keep the conversation going in the comments. Tell us your takeaways and let us know if you'd like to hear more about anything we touched on in this episode. If you've enjoyed this podcast, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on the next one. We'd also love it if you'd leave us a review and share this podcast across your socials so that we can continue to grow our amazing community of listeners. For more growth resources like this podcast episode, please visit ficompartners.com/insights. And be sure to tune in to the next episode when we'll be speaking with the growth-oriented team at LPL.